Steelers Nation, stop everything you're doing right now because what just went down in Pittsburgh is absolutely wild. We're talking potential roster shakeups, a young star who might be forcing the front office's hand, and Mike Tomlin just said something publicly that has the entire fan base in panic mode. This is huge. If you're not subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button right now because we're breaking down Steelers news every single day, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Let's get into this. Alright, so here's the situation unfolding in the Steel City, and trust me, it's got layers. The Steelers just came off a Week 3 victory against the New England Patriots. Now, on paper, a win is a win, right? You take those all day long in the NFL. But anyone who actually watched that game knows it wasn't exactly a defensive masterpiece. Yeah, Pittsburgh walked away with the W, but the way they got there has some serious questions swirling around this defense. And that's where our story really begins. Let's talk about the defense for a second. This unit is supposed to be the backbone of the entire franchise. You've got TJ Watt, arguably the most dominant edge rusher in football. You've got Minkah Fitzpatrick back there making plays. You've got veteran leadership all over that side of the ball. These guys are getting paid serious money to be elite. But through 3 games against the Jets, the Seahawks, and the Patriots, none of which are lighting up the scoreboard across the league, Pittsburgh's defense has looked surprisingly vulnerable. They're giving up yards. They're struggling on third downs. They're letting mediocre offenses look way too comfortable out there. Now, against New England, the Steelers forced 5 turnovers. 5. That's incredible, and normally that kind of ball hawking would have everyone celebrating. But here's the thing. If you actually sat down and watched that game, you know deep down that without those turnovers, things could have gone sideways real fast. The Patriots were moving the ball. They were converting long third downs. They were making Pittsburgh's defense look confused at times. And that brings us to the moment that has everyone talking. Mike Tomlin held his post-game press conference. And when he was asked about the third down struggles, he dropped a bomb that nobody saw coming. He admitted straight up that the Steelers were out-coached. Out-coached. Let that sink in for a second. This is Mike Tomlin we're talking about. A head coach with one of the longest tenures in the league. A guy who's never had a losing season. A coach known for his confidence, his preparation, his ability to get his teams ready. And he just publicly admitted that the coaching staff got out-schemed by New England's game plan. That's not something you hear every day from Tomlin. Sure, he tried to soften it a bit, giving credit to the Patriots for having a really solid plan, mentioning that there were some schematic limitations on Pittsburgh's side. But come on. When your head coach is using the words out-coached in a press conference, that's a massive red flag. That's not just admitting a bad game. That's acknowledging a systemic issue with preparation, adjustments, or game planning. And for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, that's terrifying. Steelers fans immediately lit up social media after those comments. Some were defending Tomlin, saying they appreciate his honesty and accountability. Others were in full panic mode, wondering if this defense has deeper problems than anyone realized. Because it's not just the Patriots game. Remember Week 2? Kenneth Walker III absolutely torched Pittsburgh on a 3rd and goal from the 19-yard line. The 19. That's supposed to be a gimme stop for an elite defense. Instead, Walker ran through them like they weren't even there. These aren't isolated incidents. These are patterns starting to emerge, and that's what has people worried. But while the defensive struggles are concerning, there's another storyline developing that might be even bigger in the long run. And it involves a young player who's absolutely exploding onto the scene and potentially changing the entire calculus of Pittsburgh's pass rush future. His name is Nick Herbig, and after what he just did against New England, the Steelers might have a legitimate dilemma on their hands. Let me give you some background on Herbig. He's a second-year edge rusher out of Wisconsin. Pittsburgh drafted him in the 4th round of the 2023 draft. Coming out of college, scouts loved his motor, his relentless pursuit, and his ability to create havoc in the backfield. But like most mid-round picks, nobody expected him to be an immediate game changer. The plan was for him to develop behind TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, learn the system, contribute on special teams, and maybe carve out a rotational role down the line. Well, plans changed real quick. Alex Highsmith went down with an injury, and suddenly Herbig got thrust into a much bigger role than anyone anticipated this early in his career. And what did he do with that opportunity? He absolutely balled out. Against the Patriots, Herbig was everywhere. 4 quarterback hits, a sack, a forced fumble, a tackle for loss. He was flying around that field like a man possessed, wreaking havoc on New England's offense every time he was out there. Now, you might be thinking, okay, one good game, that's nice, but let's pump the brakes. And normally, you'd be right. The NFL is full of guys who have one big performance and then disappear. But here's what makes Herbig different. This isn't a one-game flash in the pan. Look at his career numbers. In just 32 career games, he's already forced 7 fumbles. 7. That's an elite level of ball disruption. That's not luck. That's a skill. That's a guy who knows how to attack the football, who has an innate ability to create turnovers and change the momentum of games. And now, with Highsmith on the shelf and Herbig showcasing what he can do, people around the league are starting to take notice. Analysts are talking about him, coaches are game planning for him, and most importantly, the Steelers' front office is watching very closely because they've got a potential problem brewing. A good problem, but a problem nonetheless. Here's where things get really spicy. During a recent fan Q&A session, Jerry Dulac, one of the most respected and plugged-in Steelers insiders, was asked a fascinating question. A fan wanted to know if there was any chance, any possibility at all, that Alex Highsmith could eventually be traded. And Dulac's answer? He said possibly. Not no, not that's ridiculous. He said possibly. And the reasoning he gave is what has everyone's mind spinning right now. Dulac explained that Herbig is making serious noise. The kid is proving he belongs on the field. Meanwhile, Highsmith is on a pretty hefty contract, and he has legitimate trade value around the league. Now, Dulac was quick to point out the differences between the two players. Highsmith is the more complete player right now. He's better at setting the edge against the run. He's more disciplined in his assignments. He's a steady, reliable presence who does all the little things right. Herbig, on the other hand, brings more pure speed and burst off the edge when it comes to rushing the quarterback. He's more of a chaos agent, a guy who can change a play in an instant with his explosiveness. But here's the reality of the NFL. It's a business, and in business, you have to make tough decisions based on value, production, and salary cap management. Nobody is saying a Highsmith trade is happening tomorrow. Let's be clear about that. The Steelers are not trading one of their starting edge rushers in the middle of a season where they're competing for a playoff spot. That would be organizational malpractice. But looking ahead, that's where it gets interesting. Fast forward to 2026. That's when Nick Herbig is going to be up for a potential contract extension. The Steelers are going to have to decide what he's worth and whether they want to invest long-term money in him. At the same time, Highsmith's contract is going to become increasingly expensive. He's set to count over $20 million against the salary cap in each of the final 2 years of his current deal. $20 million. That's a massive chunk of cap space for a team that's going to have to pay a lot of players in the coming years. So let's play this out. If Herbig continues to develop and ball out over the rest of this season and into next year, his value skyrockets. If Highsmith continues to deal with injuries, even minor ones, that becomes part of the equation. And if the Steelers draft another edge rusher, which they very well might given their draft capital, suddenly you're looking at a crowded room. You've got TJ Watt, who's not going anywhere. You've got Herbig, who's young and hungry and producing. You've got a potential rookie who could contribute immediately. And you've got Highsmith, who's expensive and could fetch a solid return in a trade. The Steelers are sitting on a goldmine of draft picks for 2026. We're talking about a projected 12 selections. 12. That gives them so much flexibility to rebuild, reload, and add young talent across the roster. But it also means they might not feel the pressure to hold on to every veteran, especially ones with big cap hits. If another team comes calling and offers a second-round pick, maybe even a first if Highsmith has a monster year, can Pittsburgh really afford to say no? And there's another name in the mix that makes this even more complicated. Jack Sawyer. The Steelers drafted this rookie edge rusher, and while he hasn't made huge waves yet, the coaching staff is high on his potential. If Sawyer starts to develop and show he can contribute, you're now looking at a potential rotation of Watt, Herbig, Sawyer, and maybe a 2026 draft pick. That's a young, hungry, cost-controlled pass rush unit. And in that scenario, moving Highsmith before his contract balloons makes a lot of financial sense. Now let's be real. Steelers fans are split on this. Some are already attached to Highsmith. He's been a solid contributor. He does his job. He's a team-first guy. The idea of trading him feels wrong to a lot of people. But there's another camp that's all in on Herbig. They see the explosiveness, the playmaking ability, the potential to be a star. They're ready to hand him the keys and see what he can do with a full-time starting role. It's a fascinating debate, and it's one that's going to play out over the next year and a half. Social media has been going crazy with this speculation. Fans are posting highlight reels of Herbig's best plays. Others are breaking down the salary cap implications of keeping Highsmith versus extending Herbig. Some are even mocking up trade packages, trying to figure out what other teams would be willing to give up. It's the kind of off-season level discussion that usually doesn't happen until February, but here we are in September, already diving into it because Herbig's performance has forced the conversation. But let's zoom back out for a second because these two stories, Tomlin's admission and the Herbig-Highsmith situation, they're connected in a way that tells us something bigger about where the Steelers are right now. This is a team at a crossroads. They've got veteran talent that's expensive and maybe not performing up to expectations. They've got young players who are hungry and ready to take on bigger roles. They've got a coaching staff that's being questioned publicly, even by their own head coach. And they've got a fan base that's desperate for answers. The next few weeks are going to be critical. If the defense continues to struggle, if they keep getting gashed on third downs, if they keep relying on turnovers to bail them out, the heat is going to turn up on the coaching staff. Fans are going to demand changes. The front office is going to start asking hard questions. And players are going to feel the pressure to perform or risk being replaced. On the flip side, if Herbig keeps this level of play up, he's going to become one of the most exciting young players in the league. He's going to force the front office to make a decision sooner rather than later. And he might just be the key to unlocking a new era of Steelers defense, one that's built on speed, chaos, and creating turnovers rather than just being a brick wall. The trade speculation isn't going away. If anything, it's going to intensify. Every time Herbig makes a play, people are going to wonder what it means for Highsmith. Every time Highsmith misses a game or struggles, people are going to ask if it's time to move on. And every time the salary cap numbers get discussed, the conversation is going to come back to value and production. This is the reality of modern NFL roster construction. You can't keep everyone. You can't pay everyone. You have to make tough choices. And sometimes those choices mean moving on from good players to make room for great players or to preserve financial flexibility. The Steelers have always been smart about this. They've never been a team to overpay or hold on to players past their prime. They're calculated, disciplined, and willing to make the hard calls when necessary. And that brings us back to Tomlin's comments. Because at the end of the day, none of the roster construction matters if the coaching isn't up to par. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're getting out-schemed, out-coached, and out-prepared, you're going to lose games you should win. That's what makes Tomlin's admission so jarring. It's not like him to publicly acknowledge a coaching failure. It's not his style. So the fact that he did means he's either really frustrated, really concerned, or both. Steelers Nation needs to buckle up because the next few months are going to be wild. We're going to see if the defense can figure it out and start playing to the level everyone expected. We're going to see if Herbig can sustain this production and prove he's the real deal. We're going to see if Highsmith can get healthy and remind everyone why he got paid. And we're going to see if the coaching staff can adjust, adapt, and get this team back on track. One thing's for sure, the storylines are there. The drama is building, and the stakes couldn't be higher. This is Steelers football, and it's never boring. Make sure you're subscribed because we're going to be covering every twist, every turn, and every bombshell as this season unfolds. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Should the Steelers trade Highsmith? Is Herbig the future? And are you worried about what Tomlin said? Let's talk about it. Steelers Nation, this is just the beginning.